recently from Air Force pilots and Navy pilots. They've been talking about things happening in the ocean, and that something literally goes into the water, or something maybe below the surface of the water. You're thinking about
the 2004 Tic Tac Nimitz case. So that's when George Knapp and I broke on the radio twice before the New York Times, so I know this one really well. Commander Fravor and those pilots. There was a disturbance on the surface of the water. Commander Fravor visually saw what looked like similar to a cross, some object. So it's like as if you have some coral under the water and it's breaking over.
Right.
The Tic Tac is doing this crazy maneuver that defies. It's a gravity-propelled system.
They saw it in the sky before they saw it in the water, right?
Yeah, so there were radar that was picking these things coming down from 80,000 feet and dropping to 50 feet in less than a second.
This is it, Jamie? What is this?
Yeah, this is actually on the news today. There was a briefing.
So a lot of people get this confused.
Oh, not this one then either?
No, so that is called the gimbal. So there's three videos released by the Pentagon that are all actual.
Just play and keep the volume off.
Okay.
I would really just pay attention to the source videos. So you've got the Tic Tac, which is this object that Commander Fravor saw. Another pilot filmed it with a FLIR pod, and it goes. Choop. But this one you see is really important to Bob's story. The gimbal craft. It's been recently analyzed. It's FLIR. Not only does it's definitive that it's not conventional anything by its movements, but there's a pocket of cold air around a propulsion source. So this object, by the way, sat stationary for days, if not weeks. It sat stationary.
Yeah, they found it 11 hours later, and they were saying there's no way this thing, using that kind of energy to go that fast, could just hover for
the amount of
hours.
time. And by the way, you're seeing a very small part of what happened that day. This object was not alone. And so hopefully that information comes out, and we can, I wish we had video of it. I'm sure we'd all want to see it. But that's called the gimbal. That was East Coast, right? 2015. West Coast, 2004, was the Tic Tac. The disturbance on the water, Commander Fravor believes there was something under that water that was causing that disturbance when the Tic Tac was coming around and doing it. With inside the people that are studying this, they're thinking maybe the Tic Tac system was causing the disturbance, but the USO, Unidentified Submerged Object, that he visually saw. The whole interesting thing about that is, I would love Bob to describe it, is why it doesn't matter if these craft are in space, air, or water. Why doesn't it matter? I love when he talks about this shit.
Well, first of all, Commander Fravor was the F-18 pilot off the Nimitz that was sent out to find out what this stuff is. But and it wasn't just, I got a chance to talk to him recently, and it wasn't just a radar image. Commander Fravor had eyes on it for over 5 minutes watching this thing, as 4 other pilots did. So this wasn't a radar blip or anything. These guys were watching this thing. But, one of the things I think in the gimbal video, the way the craft that we worked on flies is it doesn't fly like a conventional aircraft does, and it doesn't fly like a flying saucer would in a 1950s movie. It flies belly first. It may set down conventionally, but it always rotates. It does a roll maneuver, puts its belly towards the target, and then moves away at high speed. So it'd be like a car flying with the wheels forward. Right. It may land on the wheels, but at some point when it wants to leave, flips up, points the wheels where it wants to go, and takes off. And the gimbal video, you can see the craft do the roll maneuver. And it's really interesting. It behaves exactly like the craft that I worked on.
So much like we have different shaped aircrafts and fighter jets and cars, they probably have different shapes of these objects that operate under similar principles.
Right,
perhaps.
But they all have the same power source.
They all have the same power source. And we're also dealing with, if you think about the laws of technological progression, you think of Moore's law and you think of how things accelerate, you've got to think that if this civilization is who knows how many years more advanced than we are, if not even years. We're thinking about it in terms of conventional terms, right? The way we look at the world. They might be just superior in terms of their intellect. They've got to be. Maybe. We don't know, right?
Well, the only reason I say that is because, look, everyone doesn't necessarily start at a steam engine and go to an internal combustion engine and then electric power, nuclear power, and go up the ladder that we come on. The binary, if the stuff is true about the origin and the binary star system, and they have heavier elements that we don't have, and this stable element 115 is a naturally occurring material, maybe that's the first thing they started experimenting with. And the version of their steam engine, their first product, was something that operated like this. And actually, when they came to Earth to look around, or whatever, they were amazed at the stuff we were doing. These guys burned stuff and squirted out the back to go forward. So, who says they follow any kind of normal progression like that?
My thought was, if you went back to the 1400s and then you went from 1400 to 1500, you're not going to see that much of a difference technologically.
Right.
If you go from 2000 to 3000, I assume there's going to be a radical change.
Right. Well, the delta, the rate of change is magnificently higher than it used to be.
Right. So if you think about what they had in 1988 and you think about what they probably have in 2019, just logically, it seems like they would advance.
I would think so.
The only question is, are they living? Is that a living thing in terms of like a biological thing, or are they some sort of an artificially created creation like we are working on right now? I mean, we're in the middle of working on artificial reality, artificial beings, sentient beings, artificial intelligence. There's silicon-based life forms that they're essentially trying to create. Boston Dynamics at the company that's making those crazy robots? Yeah.
You can make machines out of flesh, right? So a cyborg or a cybernetic organism is just that, that's what a lot of people think those gray things are, that people call the grays.
Yeah.
Is they're machines printed from flesh. So what you're saying is not
they
so
could just
far
be
off from
synthetic life. They don't even need to be, machines.
Right.
Well, they seem to have no sex organs. The way they're described by people that have had interactions with them, assuming these people aren't liars or crazy or whatever.
Right.
That they have no sex organs and that they don't seem to have any muscle. They're just almost like a frame.
Right.
And they have enormous heads. I mean, if you look at Australopithecus or depictions of ancient hominids, and then you go to human beings. Are you Jeremy? I'm sure you're aware of this. The footage from the Mexican Air Force.
Yeah, very aware of that.
What do you think about that?
Well, again, it's IR footage, which is really interesting. They actually got the cameras for drug runners, right? So you can see in the infrared, so it's beyond the observable, eye. I myself have not detailed looked at the footage. However, FLIR experts, some people that work with NSA have looked at it for me, and these are not lights in the distance. These are craft, very similar to what Commander Fravor talks about, without plumes, without heat signatures, non-traditional field propulsion systems. We don't have that. And
I thought they tried to, is this it right here? Is this the Mexican Air Force footage?
Yeah. So they tried to say these were lights on an oil rig out in the water. That's been debunked.
Yeah, they tried to say it was a fire in an oil rig, right?
No.
The 2004
to the
Comcast
pilots.
Video of the Year was the Mexican Air Force tracking like 6. So literally right after our incident, we come back, and I think we were getting ready to go to Fallon, and I had Comcast, and the home page comes up, and there's this video, and I go, holy cow, that looks like what we chased. And it was like 6 of these things, and they were tracking them in the same area too, right off the coast of Ensenada.
And it's not as rare. There's now admitted an increased frequency. A Pentagon spokeswoman finally went off script. I was tracking the scripts for the last 2 years of what Pentagon spokespeople say about Commander Fravor's experience. Someone went off script last week in the New York Times, and she admitted there's an increased frequency of near misses because of these AAVs, anomalous aerospace vehicles. So it's pretty astounding. We're getting all these kind of revelatory moments in these little seeds that these are not ours. We don't have this. Even Elon doesn't have this. I mean, this is a propulsion system unlike anything we have. It's amazing. It's gravity propelled.
Now, that gimbal footage, when it said that there's a fleet of them, how far away are those guys where you don't see the individual objects, you only see a singular spot?
Well, the pod is, when you get pretty narrow, it'd be like, if I put 3 people around you, I can look at you and not see the other people. So that's what the pod is doing. But the radar is seeing everything because it has an AESA radar in it, which is an active electronically scanned array. So instead of like the radars we had, which did the mechanical, doing this like old school, this thing is just a panel that sits in the front of the airplane, and through beam sharing or beam shaping, it can move and it can look all over. So we used to have what was called track while scan, so we would be able to track a target while we're still scanning. This thing has scan while it scans while it tracks. So it literally, if it sees you, if the radar sees you, it has basically a weapons quality solution. And it can do that on multiple targets. That's how it's the same way the spy radar, the Aegis system works on the cruisers. It can track multiple targets and have weapons quality on all these different targets while it's still scanning a volume.
So in that image, you're seeing one individual object, but there's other objects?
Yes. The radar is seeing the object that the pod is looking at where they're talking. And when you hear the video, you hear the pilot say, "Dude, look at the SA page. There's a whole fleet of them." So what they're seeing is the pod is looking at the main. That's the bigger object at the gimbal, the thing that's rotating on the screen. And there's 5 smaller things in front. So this thing's just sitting there, and then he said they turn around on the radar and start going the other way while the pod's looking at this guy just kind of rotating.
So like a mothership and smaller aircraft.
Could be.
Something along those lines. Is there video of those smaller aircrafts or just the video
No.
of the one large one?
The only thing they have is the targeting pod. I would highly doubt, even if they had the video, that they're going to release the radar video because of classification levels.
Are you able to tell the story you told me about what was underwater with your other buddy? Because is that okay?
Yeah. So it's amazing. People come out of the woodwork when they figure out you've had this, because now they don't feel alone. So I was working. I still do it, but I was doing oil and gas at the time on a contract, and one of the guys, the story came out, and he was a Navy helicopter pilot. And he comes in, he goes, "Dude, hey, can I talk to you, man?" I go, "What about?" He goes, "Dude, I got to talk to you." And I said, "What do you want to talk to me about?" He says, "Dude, you know your UFO?" He said, "Yeah." He goes, "I had a similar experience." I said, "What's that?" He said, he was flying CH-53s, which is a big heavy lift that the Marine Corps uses, and the Navy uses it for certain things. And when they go off of, for the East Coast, they do a lot of shooting off of, at the time, it was off of Puerto Rico. We had Roosevelt Roads that they ended up closing. But he was flying out of there. And, you got super clear Caribbean water. And they have these things that are called BQMs. They fly around, and then when they're all done, because they'll fly towards the ships, and the ship can, they can track with the radar. And then they also do, the ships or submarines shoot torpedoes. They're called telemetry rounds. So they gather all the data on what the torpedo is doing underwater, and then they blow ballast, and this thing will come to the surface and float, and then they go pick them up, and then they can extract all the data out of them. So they do it for both. So he said the first time they're out, and they're going to pick up this BQM. And those things, when they're flying, they're done. A parachute comes out, and they got to go. They hook it up. The helo drops the swimmer in the water. He goes and hooks this whole thing up, and then they hoist the whole thing up and fly back, and then they extract the data. So he says he's sitting in the front. In helicopters, there's, CH-53, you can actually see down by your feet, just like typical, like you go to Hawaii and ride, because you can see when you're touching down. So you got really good visibility out of those things, and you can stick your head out the window, too, because you're just kind of hanging out. He says he's going on there, and they're getting this thing hooked up, and as he's looking down, because they're, 50 feet above the water, he sees kind of this dark mass coming up from the depths. And they start to hoist the diver up, and they've got the BQM, and as they hoist it up, he says, and he's looking at this thing going, "What the hell is that?" And then it just goes back down underwater. It just once they pull the kid and the BQM out of the water, this object descends back into the depths. So he thinks, well, that was pretty weird. So he goes out, he says, not too long later, a few months later, he's out and he's picking up a torpedo. So he says they hooked the diver up on the winch, and they're lowering him in, and as he's looking down, he sees this big, massive, he goes, it's not a submarine. He's seen submarines before. Once you see a submarine, you can't confuse it with something else. This big object, kind of circular, he says, is coming up from the depths, and he starts screaming through the intercom system to tell him to pull the diver up, and the diver's like a few feet from the water. So they reverse the winch, and the diver's thinking, what the hell's going on? And he's getting pulled up, and all of a sudden, he said the torpedo just got sucked down underwater, and the object just descended back down into the depths, and they never recovered the torpedo.
Jesus.
And this happened in the late 90s. Mid to late 90s, I think it is. I could probably get in touch with him and ask him. And he told me this story, and I'm like,
how do you report that?
You come in and go, well, where'd the torpedo go? It just got sucked down. It just went down, and then you get the people that attribute it as, something happened when it blew ballast and it just took on water and sank. And he's like, it didn't sink. He goes, it literally looked like it got sucked down. The only reason they talked to him when they did the New York Times stuff, they talked to him, but because the incident was from the 90s, they wanted something, newer. So they did not include it, but I know they talked to him about it.
Now, what was the other footage that we were looking at? There was the first footage that Jamie pulled up that wasn't the gimbal footage. That was
the Go
something else?
Fast.
The Go Fast. What is that?
That's it actually looks more like a Tic Tac, but they saw it going across the water, and they're just grabbing a lock. So they're seeing this with their eyes, and he gets the FLIR to lock on it, and that's when you hear the kid go, "Oh, I got it," because he gets the auto track, and it's just something screaming across the surface of the water. So.
And this is in the same area?
This is East Coast, yeah. This is the same time frame as the gimbal video.
So the idea that these are birds, or the idea that this is a radar glitch, or somebody said pilot error, like on a clear blue day, Commander Fravor has nerves. I mean, that kind of thing that people have said on your show to you, that these are explanations that make sense.
Who said that?
I don't even want to say their names.
Mick West?
Yeah, sure.
Mick believes everything. Like every single thing that's ever happened has a rational explanation for it.
so the probability that all the radars went off at the wrong time. Commander Fravor had nerves. That all the other pilots up there with him, that this thing shot off like a gun instantly. Like that was somehow perfectly coordinated. That's a conspiracy. That's a fabrication. Probably Occam's razors. The events happened exactly like we're being told.
Yeah, for us it was. And I'll go back to the beginning of the story of, the other pilot who was brand new. She had been in the squadron for 4 months, 5 months. So she's pretty junior. She was still working on her initial qual on the airplane. And, so she gets we get the real world vector, and it's like, okay, real world vector, cool. I'm going to get to do something real, exciting. Then you see the water, and you think, oh, something's sinking, because it's kind of that shape of an airplane, that cross type. So now it's, oh crap, now it's search and rescue. We got to go down and see, because there's people, and we are sympathetic. And to the Tic Tac, and as soon as the Tic Tac, it's like, holy shit, what is that? And when you get, some people get very emotional when you talk about it. Because for me, it was like, for her, when you talk to her, she has a disdain for some of the leadership that didn't tell us that these things were out there. They're here now, we're getting vectored because we were the first time the manned airplanes had been airborne when one of these things showed up. That no one even gave us a brief that, hey, we're seeing these objects out here for the last 2 weeks. They're just kind of, you might want to know they're out there. And they never told us. No one knew these things existed besides the radar operators. And the radar operators didn't know what they were. They just knew they were seeing blips. So and there's a lot of stuff that, that it flew around and it came around me, and it didn't do any of that stuff. It's the story that I gave you is just relatively benign, but it was, it's an interesting experience.
So these incidents that they reported were taking place before you saw that Tic Tac encounter.
Yeah,
they were taking place over a period of how many weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
We went out at the beginning of the month for this 2-week at sea period. We pulled in for Thanksgiving, but other than that, we were out till I think December 21st is when we pulled the ship back in, besides pulling in for the 3 days at Thanksgiving. So, yeah, for the 2 weeks prior, so this was on the 14th, and we went out at the beginning of the month. So about 2 weeks, they had been watching these things come down, go up, come down, go up. But it was always when we were not flying, which is really probably like the midnight time frame until early in the morning the next, till noon the next day. And then we just happened to go. And if you think about it, I laugh at, if there was some little green man flying around in that Tic Tac, he probably got back to the mothership and got yelled at for being seen. But you're like, oh my God, you let him see you. So.
And in another case, I saw it was a magpie, one of these birds known for how smart it is. There was a full, half-liter, plastic thing of water. It was just water, okay? A water bottle. And it was full. So the magpie goes over and sips out the water. Now, the beak is only, an inch and a half long or an inch at most, so it goes in until it can't reach the water anymore. So what does it do? It goes off to the side, gets a rock, just the right size, drops it into the water bottle.
It raises the level of the water.
Thereby displacing water. Here it is.
That is heavy.
You've got the video. There it is. And so it comes and it goes back and it gets another stone, drops it in, and every time it drops it in, the water level rises and it can drink more water. And it keeps doing this.
That's pretty amazing.
Okay? And so every time we study animals, they're smarter than we ever thought they were. So maybe for our own ego, we kept building ourselves up, saying how separate and distinct we are as humans in the animal kingdom, when maybe we're not as separate and distinct as we think we are. So now what's my broader point there about that I was making? I just distracted
Something
myself.
about UFOs.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to get back to UFOs on that.
The fact that we have high-resolution cameras in our pocket and we take videos of things that are very unusual.
Exactly. So here's video of a magpie doing Bernoulli experiments on a water bottle. Who would have known that even happened, right?
Right.
Okay. You can't bring the bird into a lab and maybe you could, but I don't know that anyone did. All right. Here's my point. In the 1960s and 70s, there were many, many reports of alien abductions. People said, the aliens came to me and they brought me in and then they released me. Do you have any footage? No, they took my camera. Or no, they zapped my film and now there's no image on the film. But there were countless stories. Well, now you can stream live from your camera anything that's going on in front of you. So if the aliens come and they want to abduct you, stream it. That would be instantly viral. Oh my gosh. You know, the stuff that goes viral is much less than that. A kitten that jumps to the table and falls, that goes viral? You don't think a video footage of an alien is not going to go viral instantly? But there's none. So I'm just saying, I'm thinking if we were being visited, somebody would have some good footage. If we were being visited, I'm thinking maybe Google satellite images would catch spaceships that are not airplanes moving on our surface. If we were being visited, I'm thinking we'd have something better than fuzzy monochromatic video of objects that apparently reveal themselves only to Navy pilots, right? So
one of the reasons is most of these sightings actually occur far offshore in the ocean. And the speculation is this is one of the ways. No, obviously, I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on nice and tight.
Do your thing.
This is one of the ways that they monitor us. The best way to do it is to do it where they hold their base where no one is around, which is the ocean.
No, that's not true.
So they go in the ocean, they pop up, and they fly out.
It's not true.
What do you mean it's not true?
It's not true. Yeah,
What
nobody
is it?
lives on the ocean. Yes, that's correct.
In the
but
ocean.
have you? It lives down undersea.
This is what the speculation
Oh, okay.
is.
It lives down
That's
undersea.
why these transmedium devices have been,
Okay.
these transmedium crafts have been observed.
If you are sure we are being visited by
I'm definitely
aliens
not sure.
and you don't actually have really good evidence, then you have to say that. Sure.
Well, you know that
You have to say that. You have to say, this is really happening and they're observing us and they're concealing themselves in this particular way. You have to say that. And so
Right.
that's your way to maintain your alien belief system by saying that. And I don't have a problem with it. Go get them.
Mm-hmm.
Go get them. But all of what has been put forth as evidence for aliens, to me, is insufficient evidence to excite my interest, my research interest in devoting time to finding it out. But it definitely has excited other people. I have not stopped them. I am not saying defund the military program on UAPs, which of course is just updated UFO. Right?
I know they like to say that now
Yeah,
because
that's-
there's like a
that's-
stigma to
No,
UFO.
yeah, I know. That's just that's a really transparent,
sneaky way of
no,
doing it.
no, it's not even sneaky. It's actually, I think it's embarrassing. It's like maybe if we call them UAPs,
People take them seriously.
People will take them seriously. No, it's just
I'm of the belief that they're probably akin to what we did on Mars. I don't think there's aliens in them. I have a feeling that these things are probes. And I feel like if you just think about biological entities flying through the universe, like why do that?
Right.
When you have sophisticated technology that's good enough right now from our like relatively primitive in consideration of what we think is possible a million years from now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we can send that Mars rover around. We have a helicopter on Mars.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's multiple satellites flying through the universe right now taking images. We can do all that.
yeah, but
why would
our
we?
probes are not targeting the Martian military fighter pilots.
Because there's no Martian military. But if there were, we
They're
certainly
just
would.
sitting out in the open.
Right, but if we had something like, are you familiar with one of the most famous cases was a case with Commander David Fravor of the Navy, who encountered with one or two other jets off of the Nimitz. They encountered this thing that was shaped like a Tic Tac.
Yeah. Mhm.
You know the story.
Everybody knows this, yeah.
This story. It went from, they tracked it going from 80,000 feet above sea level to 50 in less than a second. They have no idea how it moved. There's no visible propulsion system.
Mm-hmm.
It was blocking their radar. It was actively blocking tracking.
This is what their sensors told them.
Exactly.
Just be clear about that.
And then
you're stating information as though it is facts.
I'm stating information as Commander Fravor
I don't care.
related.
That doesn't matter. He's human,
Right.
and we're all human here. But
I
as
understand
a
what you're
scientist, when you're presenting information, you don't say, this thing was at 80,000 feet and it dropped to zero to sea level in 1 second or whatever it was the measure.
Yes.
That's the wrong way to report it. What you say
Okay.
is, we have sensors that told us this is what happened.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay?
Yes.
That's a very important distinction.
Yes.
And so now, all right, your first question then, tell me about the sensors.
Yeah.
Okay, are they double checked? Are they, you know? And so, but if you're just going to say there's this craft at 80,000, then everyone is thinking about a craft, and no one is thinking about the sensor.
They actually saw it with their eyes too. This is something that they actually got.
You can't see something at 80,000 feet.
No, the actual visual on the craft.
Okay.
They didn't see it at 80,000 feet, but this craft, it's not just something that was tracked with equipment.
Got it. But they didn't see it at 80,000 feet.
Right.
That's my point. So, by the way, this level of attention I'm giving to the detail and the reporting of information, we do that with fellow scientists for much less
Oh, for sure.
than if we're being visited by intelligent aliens from another planet. Go visit go to a scientific conference and watch the level of scrutiny we put on other people's work. If they have a sensor that has a new result, we'll say, did you calibrate the sensor? How long has the sensor been in use? I'll give you an example. Here's an example, okay? Do you remember Planet X?
Yes.
The search for Planet X.
Nibiru.
That was one. There were several incarnations of Planet X.
Right.
That was among them. Okay.
That was the most wacky.
I'm talking about 100 years ago, Planet X. Okay.
Yes. 100 years ago?
Well, there's several Planet X's, right? So. Uranus was moving weirdly. Nobody understood. Maybe there's a planet beyond it whose gravity we have yet to reckon in our equations. Oh, boom! We discover Neptune. Wait a minute. Neptune is moving a little unfamiliarly. My phone is. Sorry about
You're
that.
going to drop that thing and break it with no case on?
So, this I got the 12, and I can still do this. I'm just sorry.
Yeah,
it's
I
not
get
dropping.
it. Last time you were here, you had a broken case. You're a broken back. Remember?
So, why are you distracting me? Like that?
Sorry.
I was like on a roll, and
Neptune.
So Neptune.
Gravity.
We're looking at Neptune's orbit, and it's not following Newton's laws, and this is odd. Well, we've been down that road before. Uranus didn't follow Newton's laws. We proposed another planet, and we found it. So Neptune's not following all the laws of gravity that from all the other planets in the sun. There must be another planet out there, a Planet X. Let's look for it.
Is that Bode's law?
Bode's law is a fitting function that gets you. It got a little more attention than it deserved. It's just that planets, every next planet is about twice as far away from the sun as the previous one. So you just make a quick equation out of that. And,
that's it?
But it doesn't work for Mercury, and it didn't work for Pluto. And
I thought it was based on the mass of the planet.
no, not at all. Mass has nothing to do
Nothing
with it.
to do with it?
And it predicted the asteroid belt, but the asteroid belt, there's no planet there.
Right.
Okay. And if you glue together all the pieces of the asteroid belt, you get something like 5% the mass of the moon. So it gave us the location of the asteroid belt, but that's not a planet. So Bode's law, it's fun to play with, but there are limits to how far you want to declare its relevance to the actual universe. So we're out here at Neptune, and so I said maybe there's a Planet X. Everybody started looking, including Percival Lowell. all right, back in the 1920s. And he says, I want to find Planet X because something's perturbing Neptune. So he sets out looking for it, and he doesn't find it. Then he hires Clyde Tombaugh, and he dies, so he doesn't see the results of this. Clyde Tombaugh, he said, I can't find it either. I will just systematically search everywhere. Because if you think something's affecting you gravitationally, you ought to have some idea where it is to be tugging on you in that way. All right? That's not some kind of weird, it's like you're moving differently. Where must the thing be to tug on you so that you're moving in that way? Right. No one could find such a Planet X. So Clyde Tombaugh said, it's got to be out there somewhere. I will systematically image the entire sky. All right? And you got to do it on multiple nights, because if something's moving, you'd see it change from one picture to the next. He does this, discovers Pluto. Was Pluto where Planet X was supposed to have been? No. Was Pluto the mass that Planet X should have been? Everyone assumed it was. But over the decades, the mass of Pluto got lower and lower and lower as our estimates got more and more accurate. And then we found out that Pluto is 1/5 the mass of our moon, made of half ice. And this is why Pluto got into trouble later in the 20th century. It's not because we had some vendetta against Pluto. Pluto just never belonged in that list to begin with. That's really how you need to think about it. Anyhow, there's still the matter of Neptune's orbit. Pluto did not have enough mass to make those changes. So the search for Planet X continued. So what happens? All right. 1993. A colleague of mine named Miles Standish. Okay? He's probably related to the Miles Standish on the Mayflower. He is an astrophysicist, looked at all of the data people were using to say Neptune's orbit was crooked. Looked at all the data. Then he found out that at one particular observatory, was it the gearbox or the timing mechanism, had just been cleaned or swapped out. Or there was some, because in the observing log, you write down everything because you just don't know. Okay, was there a glitch in the current? Was there a bird fly over? You make notes of everything. One of the observatories whose data was being grafted together with the other observatories had this sort of gearbox. I don't remember if it was a gearbox. There was some mechanical adjustment that was made. He said, I wonder if that had an effect on the positioning of this telescope. He removed those data from his analysis and fitted data to all the other telescopes that he had for the positions of Uranus. Of Neptune. When he did that, Planet X evaporated in that instant. In that instant. There was no Planet X. All the other data, when he connects across, removing the data from the one where the observing log said they did something different, Neptune fell right on to Newton's laws. And so since 1993, there is no Planet X. And Pluto, and were it not for that, we probably would have been a long time before we discovered Pluto because no one would have looked for it.
They found another Pluto.
Let me just finish the lesson there.
Okay.
The lesson there is you have information that you think is correct from your sensors. This was an observatory, a fine observatory. And you're going to say, this observatory says Neptune is misbehaving. But then you learned there was something wrong with the data. You throw it out. So I'm trying to say this happens all the time in science. You have to be careful what you're analyzing before you declare that what the thing measured is true, and then realign all your resources to address what you think is true when it might have just simply been a glitch or multiple glitches or anything. And we do this all the time in science.
They go out into the desert, and they have some sort of a secret frequency. He didn't want to discuss it, that they can push out. They can send out the secret frequency, and it'll call them in. And that other people have done it simply by willing them in.
Yeah, that's what I did.
So sitting there and putting out this message that you're trying to communicate with them, and then eventually they show up.
Yeah, I can't speak to technologically assisted psionics and all that kind of stuff, but Do you want to hear my UFO
Yes,
story? Okay.
100%.
So-
First of all, where did you come up with this idea on your own, or did you hear about people doing this?
No, I heard of it from someone who's a quite polarizing figure in the UFO community. I know you've spoken to him, Dr. Stephen Greer.
Polarizing people are right sometimes.
He's right on this.
Yeah, they could be right on a lot of
He's
things.
right on this, and I know that a lot of people have issues with Greer, but he was actually my intro into the UFO subject. So I'll tell you the story. Sorry about my throat. Let me just take a sip of water, actually.
No worries.
So this was
How did he find out about it?
it's a good question. He had a near-death experience, I believe, and from that was actually apparently communicated to and shown things that when he came out of that experience, he became a samadhi type, teacher. And,
Of course.
got profoundly interested
That's a
in
great
consciousness.
origin story.
Brilliant origin story. My origin story was that I was really bored during COVID. No, so honestly though, it was actually in 2019 that I had these experiences, and I do think that it's very important to lay a bit of foundational groundwork, because I think a lot of people will recognize this as well. And it's something that you mentioned with Bigfoot being in a high stress environment in the forest. Maybe that changes your perception. And I think that there's a degree of trauma and a degree of intense emotional moments that can bring about paranormal experiences. I don't know why, but it does seem to be something that a lot of people relate to. Yes, I was in a very dark time. Yes, I was having a very traumatic time. Or yes, I was going through something. And then this happened. And so for me, I was in my third year of university and struggling. Just had a whole mix of personal issues going on. So I ended up kind of dropping out before I finished, and was just in a really bad rut. And my dad was worried about me, and he said, "Look, I'm out in." This is a bit of a long story, but it's important to lay this foundation, I think, before I talk about what I actually experienced, because it plays in. My dad was worried. He was out in France at the time, and he said, "Look, do you want to come out and stay at this place with me and just, kind of relax and bring yourself back to normal?" I was like, "Yeah, okay." So I came out, and he was like, "I've got these books that I've been reading. I think they'd be really beneficial for you. You should read them." And I was like, "Okay, I don't see how a book's going to change
Does he
anything."
often recommend books?
Not massively, no. In fact, no. This was the only time he recommended books, which is interesting. And they were a series of books called Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh. Have you ever heard of them?
No.
Okay, so it's interesting. It kind of ties into, I suppose, the channelled works, things that people believe they received.
Oh, wait a minute. I have heard of this.
He's quite well known. He's
Yeah.
quite well known. He, was a radio DJ, broke his neck in a car accident, became homeless, finally managed to get back on his feet, but was still struggling, wrote an angry letter to God, and then apparently woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and was having voices literally telling him to write things down. And so he wrote all of this down, and this became Conversations with God. It's literally a dialogue of him asking questions and him receiving answers, which he interpreted as from God. Now, that is intense, and I'm definitely not here to say this is a Bible and everyone should read it. However, it was incredibly impactful for me at that time. The things that I was reading about, it was a very different idea of God, universal consciousness leaning towards more than some weird patriarchal cloud living figure that just never made sense to me. So it got me in, and I was reading it, and it helped tremendously, weirdly enough, which I didn't expect. And that put me on a path towards researching metaphysics and philosophy and science and consciousness, and that's where it really started for me. But then a couple years down the line, I found myself in another depression, in a sense, because I felt like I'd accumulated a lot of information about various different topics that I thought were these big questions and big answers and big esoteric things. And I just got to a point where I was like, none of this is actually helping me in my life. In fact, I'm actually feeling fucking worse for looking into all of this thing. I don't know how this is going to benefit me. So I was sitting on my bed one night, and I guess you could call it a prayer. I just sat on my bed and said out loud to the universe, I need something that validates all of this. If I'm meant to be looking into these big picture questions about the universe and consciousness, if there's something tangible here, I need to know, and I want evidence, and I'm ready for it. So give me it. I want that. And then a week later, my best friend at the time, he was like, "Hey, I was watching this documentary. You've got to check it out. It's called Unacknowledged by this guy called Dr. Stephen Greer. And this is my first introduction to the UFO subject." So I was like, okay, cool. Sit down and watch that. Very good documentary. All of these different, high-level officers and missile launch guys talking about UFOs. It got me in. And then near the end of that is when he brings up this concept of CE5, initiating contact with these. You can actually have your own experiences by getting into a particular meditative state. If I hadn't been making that request on my bed the week prior, I probably just would have watched that documentary and gone about my life. But it felt like a very strong message to me personally, because I've been asking for something to validate these ideas around consciousness. Now there's a guy saying, yeah, you can actually have an experience by going out and attempting to, ask for one.
So talk me through the process of actually doing that.
So he has...
Did you get it on the first try?
No.
How many times did you try?
It was a weird gradual thing where things were happening in the sky that were enough to keep me going out, but not enough for me to be like, okay, this is legit.
So like how many times did you go out before it worked?
Before I saw what I really, really saw, probably about a month of going out.
Damn, that's commitment.
But I was seeing things, but they weren't. It was kind of just enough to make me like, okay.
What were you seeing?
Lots of what the contact community call flash bulbs, flashes of light in the night sky in a void of space, repeatedly without any discernible object attached to it. Just one flash, and then send a thought, another flash, send a thought, another flash. And this happened multiple times. I've been someone who watches the night sky all my life. I'm used to seeing satellites. I know what iridium flares are.
For?
Maybe an hour, 2 hours,
And so you sit down. Are you seated?
No, I'd usually be standing with my neck craned to the sky, but I would be...
Why don't you get a lounge chair?
I know.
More meditative.
I know. I don't know. I don't think about things properly sometimes when I do
How about
them.
just lay down on the ground?
Just lay on the grass,
Don't
right?
you get a better view of the sky?
Yeah, but it's cold in England and it was wet, mildewy on the floor.
Yeah,
It was not...
Get a tarp.
Not,
Bring a tarp.
But I was essentially, because of, again, asking the universe for something. The universe seemed to be giving me some sort of response. It kind of lit a fire up under me, and I started going outside. And honestly, a lot of people, like even Greer, has this incredibly, complicated method using samadhi and doing various things. I didn't do any of that. I just breathed in through the nose and out through the mouth until I felt very calm, and then began to very clearly model my thoughts around the concept of I want something to respond to me, and then I would essentially visualize that was emanating from me, that these thoughts were emanating from me. And it didn't take very long before I'd have flashes of light in the sky that just seemed weird because I've never seen anything like that, or an incredible influx of what look and behave like satellites, but just at an incredibly high level, where it's just like, what's going on here? And it just felt like a kind of step-by-step progression until in August of 2019, I had 4 incredibly vivid and real experiences with orange orbs of light. Really profound.
What was that? What happened?
So I was outside. At this point, it had become my routine. It was in the summer of August, and it was relatively warm, so I was out doing this quite a lot, seeing little flashes, seeing things in the sky, trying to figure out what exactly it was that I was seeing. And I was standing at the back of my garden looking towards my house, night sky, crystal clear. And I saw at the beginning a flash of light in the corner of the sky. So I looked over and I saw this flash, another flash, another flash, and it was just blinking, but it was static in space. And then it started moving down. Every time it blinked, it would move further down. And I was observing this. And then it settled above 2 stars and kind of created the apex of a triangle. And it was just flashing above these 2 stars. And I was watching this for a while. And it happened for long enough where I just decided, all right, thank you, whatever you are. I'm just going to keep panning around the sky here and looking around. And as I panned my head, I saw that there was a cloud, but I didn't really look at it. And I turn around here, come back, and I see this cloud again. And this time I really look at it. And this cloud, Joe, had, so strange, it's like a dark cloud, but when you stared at it, it had a staticky appearance. It's very hard to describe other than imagine a light overlay of TV static. There was particles, it was agitated, it was shimmering, it was something, not a cloud, like certainly not anything I've ever seen in my life. And if we pretend this microphone is my house and this cloud is here, it's drifting this way. So eventually it's going to drift past my house and go this way, at least according to its natural trajectory. It gets to my house and it does a right angle turn and it starts coming towards me. So eventually it's going to be above my head, this cloud-like formation.
A cloud does a right angle turn in the sky.
Abrupt, as in 90 degrees. It's going like this, and now it's going like this towards you. High up in the sky, but it's now in my path, complete 90-degree shift from its trajectory. And I saw it, like a jarring, bloop, now it's going this way. Okay, so at this point, I'm rooted in place. I'm not really scared, but I'm shocked at the fact that this thing did what it just did. And I'm watching as it's coming closer and closer, towards where I'm going to be. Eventually, it's directly above my head. It sounds so crazy. And, Terence McKenna said something like this. He was like, if you tell the unvarnished truth about a UFO experience, you'll be taken for a fool. It's like, it's true. If you just tell people what really happened. But this is what really happened. So this cloud comes above my head. As it's directly above my head, this cloud like sucked into itself as if there was a central vacuum, a central point where it just got sucked into itself. And it revealed a triangle formation of about 25, maybe 30 orange orbs of light in a triangle. And this triangle, basically the cloud went, triangle was revealed, it kept moving. I had to turn around and watch as it went off in this direction. And as I was watching it, I could see that some of these orbs were actually swapping formation, swapping position in this formation. And that was the first time I saw them. I saw them 3 other occasions, all within the space of a month after this. Weirdly enough, I woke up the next day, and this is the only element of the story, as crazy as the whole thing sounds, is the only element that makes me personally uncomfortable. I was getting out of the shower, and as I was drying myself off, immediately noticed where this tattoo is now. There was a triangle mark of three red marks, one here, one here, one here. Very vivid, like the
And you covered it up with a tattoo?
Well, it faded. It
Did
faded
you take any
over
pictures
time.
of it?
I have taken pictures of it. Yeah.
Is it clear?
Yes.
Can I see it?
I can try and find them. Yeah, I haven't got my internet on right now. Jamie, if you go onto my X account and just type in J. Anderson marks on arm, maybe that will come up. I'm sorry, I should have really sent that ahead of time, but I do have images online. People have seen them, and I've discussed it many times.
Did it look like a wound? Did
this
it
is
look
the thing.
like a
So-
tattoo?
So, 3 red marks, no bump, no scab, no itching, no feeling of discomfort. There was a slight shine to them, as if it was almost like a healed over burn, and this was very vivid. It didn't dissipate for over a year. It was on my arm for about a year before it faded away, eventually faded away, and then I got Hermes Trismegistus tattooed on my arm. But weirdly enough, I got this tattoo and then got invited to Egypt. But yeah, I had these experiences. I had another experience where they came down and hovered above my house.
Can I ask you this? So these orbs,
Yeah. There you go.
Wow.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks for that.
That is
Yeah.
weird. It looks like you burned 3 cigarettes on your arm.
That's what some arsehole online definitely claimed, but I didn't.
Well, that's what I would say too if I was an asshole online.
Yeah.
But that's crazy.
Yeah, this I noticed it immediately.
Very
I'm
weird.
not particularly comfortable with it. I don't know what it really means. I'm a bit of an idiot, Joe, because I should have gone to a dermatologist. I should have actually had someone
You got
look at
branded, but like cattle, son.
Well,
They
that's kind of
branded
what
you.
I think. And at the same time,
They're like, let's keep an eye on this one.
can I even be mad at them? I was like, show me, give me evidence. I want to sign. Well, fuck it, fine then.
Right.
There you go, dude.
I would say whatever that is on your arm, who knows? Maybe a dermatologist could explain it. It's just a coincidence. But the actual thing itself is far more interesting to me. And because one of the things that people always say is, if they were out there, what wouldn't we see them? Like, God, if they could come here from another dimension, or if they can come here from another planet or another solar system, don't you think they could probably hide? Like, we're pretty good at hiding. Like, don't you think we have technology right now, like the stealth bomber stuff, that diminishes the radar signal.
Exactly.
Like you can't pick them up on radar. So why would it be impossible to somehow or another manipulate your visual field, project what looks like clouds on the outside? We know that we can do stuff like that with plasma. Like they have these plasma things that could spin in the sky.
Absolutely.
And it's weird. They can make objects out of them.
I wonder if that was plasma. I actually do wonder if this was a form of self-organizing plasma, because that's definitely something that people have looked into quite extensively.
Maybe plasma has intelligence.
Yes.
There's some, yeah.
Yes, and perhaps these are a form of individuated plasmic intelligences that can interact